Hiya, Honest Discussioner here. Today I'm going to be talking about taking religion on from a scientific standpoint. Now, obviously we can't take God on from a scientific standpoint because God is untouchable, unseeable, unmeasurable by pretty much all standards. So I'm not going to be doing God, and that's why I always say you can't prove or disprove God. However, you can prove or disprove religion because religion makes some very specific claims that I think we should be able to test and show whether or not this is true. Now, I want to establish here that most theists, people of religion, believe that they have a personal relationship with God. I ask my brother all the time, and I ask him about his religion, and he always tries to correct me and say, no, it isn't a religion, it's a relationship. And I try to tell him, no, it is a religion. A relationship, what you believe to be a relationship, might be involved in your religion, but it is still a religion because it is still a set of beliefs. It isn't. If it's just a relationship, then it's just spirituality. So, we want to establish here that people believe they have a personal relationship with God. In fact, anyone who prays to God on a regular basis should have a personal relationship with God. They should be communicating, opening their heart to them. Now, you could even argue, and this isn't necessary, but you could even argue that people who believe in other religions, who are praying to God, like let's pretend that Jesus is real and Christianity is the correct religion. I think you could extrapolate that the people of Islam, when they pray to their God, Allah, who is still the Abrahamic God, they should still be connecting to this supreme being here. I think that would be what you would expect. Maybe they're a little off in their interpretation, but they're still praying to the same God. They're not praying to Jesus, they're praying to Allah, which is also Yahweh, technically. So that's not necessary, but I think I'd like to argue that that would be the case. Now, let's take the people who say that they have this relationship with God. Now, if you've seen Potholder 54's Atheist Morality, then you know that areas that are high in religion are, especially, I'm talking in the first world only here. This isn't skewed by areas in the Middle East. The areas of the first world that are much higher in religion, have a higher percentage of believers, are the worse off socially. They have they have higher teen pregnancy rates, higher STD rates, lower education rates, which I'll mention again in a second, lower gender equality, I think higher racism, don't quote me on that one, also a greater disparity between poor and rich, and just a plethora. The list goes on and on of different things, and it's almost a direct correlation with a couple of different detractors from that. I guess I'll call them. It's probably the wrong word, but anyway, moving on. Now, this is not what you'd expect from people who have a personal relationship with God. Now, Potholder and other people might say that it might not be religion that's causing this. It might be the fact that religion is associated with lower educational standards, because for one, they fight creationism and all of that sort of thing, and there's this general mistrust in science because you don't need science or education; you just need God. But that aside, even if that's the case, still, if people there are praying to have a personal relationship with God, I would think, at least I would argue, that would mean they would be better people in general. Now, you can say that they give more charity, and there are some very charitous people out there, but there are people that pray to God all the time, and who are just awful, awful people. And I'm not saying this, and this might be the exception rather than the rule, but you would expect overall that people that have a personal relationship with God, people that pray to God, would be the more moral, would be the stronger individual, and yet that's not what we see. And this is what I mean when I say putting science to religion, because we have a hypothesis here, or at least this is my hypothesis. Given that the Bible is correct, people are praying to a God who answers prayers and is the source of all truth, they should have more answers and be better off at least from a moral standpoint, than everyone else. And that hypothesis has been proven incorrect, unless anyone can give me a rebuttal to that. Now let's just say for a moment that this wasn't the case. Then statistics showed that there was no disparity between atheist areas of the first world and religious areas of the first world, or even go a little bit further and say that it showed that areas that were higher in religion were better off socially. This, while it wouldn't prove, well, it definitely wouldn't be evidence for our side, and it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't disprove or prove, I should say, it wouldn't prove God in any way, because we're not. Could still be true without a God in the world. There could be just a plain philosophy that would promote morality. Although if all of the different religions showed this same trend, then maybe you could argue that it's better to believe in religion even if it's wrong, because you'll be better off as a human being. But that still wouldn't prove God. Now, this is completely hypothetical because the evidence shows that it's quite the opposite. So here's the challenge, yet another challenge to theists. Why is this the case? If people have a personal connection to God, why do we see this correlation? Now, another thing I would like to mention is that why is there such a disagreement on people in religion? Between people, there are someone, like Yokup I know mentions all the time that God tells him stuff. And he's so certain that God tells him stuff. And even Jesus Freak has reprimanded him for this. And to Jesus Freak's credit, I, believe it or not, do give Jesus Freak credit when it's due, on rare occasions. But I would argue that there would not be so many different denominations, Catholic, Protestant. There wouldn't even be all of these different Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Now, while you do see people converting back and forth between these three Abrahamic religions, the numbers are not high, and they're not high in any one direction, as far as I know, really. If one religion was true, the people that are praying to this God, Yahweh, Allah, Jesus, they would be getting messages back from God saying, what you're doing is good, but it's off, and they would be led towards what would be on the earth the main religion. And that's not what we see. I would think that we would expect people who pray, God, guide me, and many of them do. If you're going to argue that your religion is really the only one that does it and everyone else's eyes are closed, how do you know yours aren't closed? How do you know that it's you that's really the one that's open? This is showing real arrogance on your part if this is the position you hold. So why is it that this the way things are? Why is it that people... Now, however, if you look at the hypothesis that atheists have, atheists would say, well, there isn't a God. They're not praying to anyone, so you're not going to see any special information disseminated. You're not going to see any higher amounts of morality necessarily. And as well, you are not going to see any type of... you're not going to see everyone going with the same idea. You're going to see people that believe wildly different things, even within the same denomination. And that hypothesis is very true, and that's what you'd expect if people actually were praying to no one. So that's why I have a hard time with this whole personal relationship thing. I think not only is there not any evidence for it, I think there's pretty good evidence against it. I would think that if people had a personal relationship with God, we'd be seeing a lot more cohesion between people that believe. I would think that someone would say that God would tell these people, "This is the way. You are honestly open. This is the way." But we don't see that. So my question is to believers: why? Thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Honest Discussioner, out.